UN Secretary-General Antonio Guterres calls for urgent action ahead of day one at the COP27 climate conference in Egypt.
A day into the COP27 summit in Egypt, Human Rights Watch raises concerns over protester arrests and participants' right to privacy.
The fierce battle for Ukraine's eastern front rages on as Moscow warns residents in Russian-held Kherson that a counter-attack is imminent. Extreme temperatures, wildfires, drought and flooding are all being made worse due to rising global temperatures. And the last 8 years are on track to be the hottest ever recorded. That's according to a new UN report, which indicates the world is now deep into the climate crisis. As the COP27 climate conference in Egypt gets down to business today, UN Secretary-General Antonio Guterres has called for urgent action.
As the World Meteorological Organization saw so clearly, change is happening with catastrophic speed, devastating lives and livelihoods on every continent. We must answer the planet's distress signal with action, ambitious, credible climate action. COP27 must be the place, and now must be the time.
More than 120 heads of state and government leaders are attending the 13-day conference. Today they're expected to outline hopes to slash greenhouse gases and smooth the transition to renewable energy. China's President Xi Jinping and Prime Minister Narendra Modi of India are not expected to attend, casting doubt on whether the talks could lead to any major breakthrough without two of the world's biggest polluters.
International NGO Human Rights Watch says Egyptian authorities have arrested dozens of people in recent days who have been calling for their right to protest the COP27 summit. Among the arrests, Indian climate change activist Ajit Rajagopal, who set off on an 8-day walk from Cairo to the tourist resort of Sharm el-Sheikh. He was released the next day after international criticism. The NGO says authorities have ordered cameras to be placed in all taxis in the area to monitor passengers and drivers to limit public participation, and that the government requires attendees to download an app collecting personal information, as well as access to the camera, microphone and location service of a mobile phone, raising concerns of participants' right to privacy. According to international law, everyone has the right to free, active and meaningful participation in public affairs.
There's been further destruction in Donetsk as Russian forces step up their strikes in the fierce battle for Ukraine's eastern region. Meanwhile, in the Russian-occupied city of Kherson, reports suggest residents are receiving warnings from the Russian military on their phones about an imminent Ukrainian attack. Moscow has already forcibly evacuated many civilians from the city as Ukrainian troops push on with a counter-offensive to retake it. Ukraine has been pushing forward in the south, while Russia has intensified its assault on Kyiv. Ukraine's forces say they're soon expecting the order to advance towards Kherson, and analysts agree, indicating that the rapidly deteriorating weather is starting to turn the soil into an impenetrable layer of mud. Russia's defense ministry has published footage of what it describes as mobilized personnel continuing their training in Siberia. The troops are said to be part of September's nationwide call-up by President Vladimir Putin, who claimed they were needed to protect Russia's sovereignty. Relatives in Russian-held Donetsk welcomed the return of servicemen who fought for Russia. That's after they were freed in a prisoner swap with the Ukrainian military.
Kyiv's mayor is warning that full power outages could hit the Ukrainian capital, and residents will have to evacuate in the absolute worst-case scenario. He says the city faces cuts to water supplies and heating too, as Russia ramps up its strikes on the power grid. In an interview with state television, Vitaly Klitschko said residents should conserve supplies but not to worry just yet. We are doing everything so that this does not happen. But let's be honest, our enemies are doing everything to keep the city without heat, electricity and water, and for us all to die. This is their task. The future of the country and the future of each of us depends on how prepared we are for various situations. In recent weeks, millions of Ukrainians have intermittently been left without electricity and water. Rolling power cuts are also in place to avoid overloads and to allow for repairs. The European Commission is expected to propose a financial package to EU member states to show its continued support for Ukraine.
We will never be able to match the sacrifice.
President Ursula von der Leyen says the bundle could be up to 18 million euros in financial assistance for Kyiv next year. The announcement was made after a phone call between von der Leyen and Ukrainian President Volodymyr Zelensky, with hopes the money will cover the basic budgetary needs of the war-torn country. The Commission says it will be in the form of highly concessional long-term loans, and it will also work to support Ukraine's reform and its path towards EU membership. Von der Leyen and Zelensky also discussed strengthening sanctions on Russia and Iran as the war enters its 9th month. Italy has finally allowed a rescue ship carrying 179 refugees and migrants to enter a port in Sicily. The vessel, Humanity 1, is run by a German charity. Minors will be the first to leave while adults will remain on board to undergo a medical examination. We are equally concerned about the conditions of other migrants, this activist says, because there's evidence of delays in the allocation of reception centres. It was heartbreaking and inhumane to see their conditions when we rescued them. And for this reason, we ask the Prefecture, the Ministry of Interior and the Italian government to immediately assign various hospitality centres. About 30 migrants have been refused permission to leave the ship. The measures are in line with the new policy announced by Italy's Interior Minister. Several more vessels holding almost 1,000 migrants have been at sea for more than a week, awaiting permission to dock.
A small commercial plane crashed into Tanzania's Lake Victoria on Sunday morning. Authorities say so far 26 of the 43 passengers on board have been rescued and taken to hospital. According to the police, the Precision Air flight encountered problems and bad weather when it was some 100 metres mid-air and plunged into the water. They say rescue efforts are ongoing. Pope Francis has instructed his priests and nuns in Bahrain to keep ministering to the Gulf Kingdom's Catholic community. In his final address before his return to Rome, he also called on the faithful to pray for an end to the war in Ukraine. Human rights groups urged His Holiness to use his trip to advocate for an end to capital punishment. The Argentine has urged the island's authorities to ensure human rights are guaranteed to all citizens. Hundreds of troops in World War II uniform marched across Moscow's Red Square in a reenactment of a historic wartime parade. On November 7, 1941, Red Army soldiers marched directly to the front line to repel the invading Nazi forces closing in on Moscow. Among the things on display this year are Soviet military equipment and images of the 1941 parade. Twitter is reportedly delaying the rollout of its subscription-based blue verification tag, according to the New York Times, over fears it could fuel disinformation ahead of America's midterm elections on Tuesday. Last week, the social media platform announced that anyone could get a coveted blue verification tick if they subscribe to the service for a fee of $8 a month. It's just one of the changes the company has announced since billionaire Elon Musk took over almost 2 weeks ago. However, the plan has proved controversial. Critics say they are concerned it could make it easier for people to impersonate public figures, spread disinformation and send out more offensive tweets. The sought-after blue tag was previously exclusive to verified accounts belonging to celebrities, politicians and journalists. The announcement has seen some big companies pause their ads on the platform over concerns about branding safety, leading to a significant drop in revenue. Musk has tried to reassure advertisers, saying the platform is still committed to content moderation and appear to threaten those who choose to leave. Many users are also having second thoughts about staying on the platform, with non-profit social network Mastodon reportedly seeing a 658% surge in sign-ups. On Friday, Twitter laid off about half of the company's workforce, a decision Musk says was necessary to cut costs.